Hello, my name is Greg Tullo of Viedoc, and today I'll be briefly walking you through monitoring in Viedoc. So I've already logged into the system, and what I'm going to do is just click on the big green launch button to get started. Now, normally you'll never see this role selection page. You're typically not going to have both a monitor role and a study coordinator role assigned to you, but I give a lot of demos, I have multiple roles, so I do see this selection page. But for today, we want to be a monitor. I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and I am brought to the main landing page where I see all of the subjects across all of the sites to which I've been assigned. If I wanted to just really drill into a single site, I could select them here from the drop-down menu. Perhaps I just want to go hyper-focus on New York. I can do that, and I can now see there's 27 cards or patients available to me. As always, if I don't like the index card view, I can go to a list view, and I can also go to an events view if that helps me out as well. And a lot of monitors have reported that they just love this view. It gives them a high-level overview of what they need to do. But today, let's start out with some query management. So I'll go to the issues list, and this is just a really handy way to see my action items for the day before I even get into source data verification, data review, and all of that. So what I'm looking at here is that I have 3 queries that I had manually placed on some fields, and they've all been closed due to a data edit by me as a study coordinator in my other role. And if I want to review any of this information and approve those queries, all I have to do is click on the row, and it will bring me into that particular area. Now, just to level set here, anywhere where I see SDV in green, it means that I have already performed source data verification on those particular fields. The one in red indicates that I have not performed SDV on that field, or that there was a data change after source data verification was completed, and it's now been invalidated automatically by the system because the data doesn't match what I initially reviewed. So here, if I want to see what's going on, there's a couple tools available to me. I can see here with show history that this form has been saved 3 times. And if I toggle the switch, I can see an on-screen audit trail. And I can see most recently with this field unit, centimeters was changed to inches. And that's what I see here, is that it is definitely in inches. And if I go to my query, I can see that it says, please confirm units. That was a query from a few days ago. And my study coordinator role with the same name has actually completed that. They changed it. It's closed due to a data edit. And I can either reject this and provide some more reason as to why this is still wrong, or in this case, it's clearly correct. I'll approve and save the query. That's been approved. Now I know that this is correct. I can do SDV. You'll see that this has been ticked off. And at this point, based on the roles that I've been granted for this study, I can also lock the form. And this is something really interesting about Viedoc. You can configure all of your different roles in the system to have all sorts of different permissions. So in many systems, only the data manager can lock a form. In Viedoc, you can also give that access role to, frankly, anyone you want. And in this case, we chose to give the ability to lock a form to the monitor. They know that this form is clean, so why not allow them to lock it to further changes? So I'll lock the form, I get a lock pad icon, and I'll also just take a moment to note that we also have an additional step here which can be turned on or off at the system level called clinical review. Some folks have a process in place where they like to do another review of data that is not really related to source data verification, and you can turn this on or off to help facilitate that kind of a review. So if I click this, I will have it checked off at the top, and you'll see that DM review is still not done for this form, and I'm not a data manager, so that's perfectly fine. It's not to be expected. I'll go ahead and close the form, and I'm brought back to my list of action items, or my issues, and you'll see that it's updated. We have one fewer thing that we need to do. So I can go through these very quickly at the start of my day to see what I need to do. So in this case, I had said source indicates normal. I can see that the site changed it from abnormal to normal. I can simply approve this query. And at this point, I know that that was the last thing. Maybe I'm actually on site doing source data verification. That was the last thing that was needed. I can SDV this all at once. I can go field by field, or I can go all at once and just deselect something that has a problem. And if I wanted, I can add a new query to this. We'll say result. I'll add a query and say, I don't know, source states normal, just as in my last example. And there is now a query on this field that has been sent back to the site study team to address. I'll close this form. Without locking it, I do want them to be able to edit this one. And I'm brought back to the form. And we can continue on down with my workflow. Now, if I were taking a more manual process, I can go back to my cards list. And perhaps I'm now going to do source data verification on a subject who has been withdrawn. Let's say this 026. Perhaps I have a workflow where I don't have to do source data verification on anyone who was withdrawn from the study. For example, we're going to go ahead and do that work. So as I go through, perhaps I want to start with my demographics form. I'm checking source. Everything's looking good. Maybe I SDV and lock. And I can go through fairly quickly using this process here of going form by form. But perhaps my workflow is that I go through and I check, and I'm only going to add queries if there's problems. I don't want to have to go through and click SDV or do any of that work. Well, let's go ahead and place a query on the date. We'll click ready. We have a query on this. And maybe I go through, everything else is fine. I'm not going to add a bunch of queries. The data is looking pretty good as it is. I can do a batch application of my SDV using this modality here, the data review console. So if I go into this area where I have screening with the 10 forms, and you'll note that I only see study start and screening as my two available visits because that's all that's been completed for this subject. But I can click on 10 forms. And I can say, well, do SDV on all the forms. Maybe I'm going to verify that CRA or clinical review approval. And I'm not going to lock the forms quite yet. I'll click ready. And here we can move on. Now I do want to point something out on that physical exam form. You'll see that this now shows SDV as complete for this field, but there's also a query on it. And it's up to you how you want to handle this based on your preferred work process. Perhaps you want to manually un-SDV that field so that you remember to come back to it. However, there is an automatic invalidation of SDV, and I do want to show you that now. If I rapidly switch between roles to study coordinator so I can edit data, here I can see that I do have my query on that field. I'll enter this, and I'm going to correct the date. Perhaps this was actually done on the 14th. I have to give a reason for change. We'll say it was a simple transcription error. Maybe in this case, we're going to say very much query resolution. And I'll save that change. Now, if I go back into my monitor role, you will see that that source data verification for this form has been removed automatically by the system. So it's flagging for me that I'm not quite done with this. I still need to click that SDV stamp. But before I do that, I have another query to approve. And now I can click that and perhaps lock the form. At this point, I have jumped over to Viedoc reports. And I just wanted to show a couple of tools here that are useful for monitors. So we, of course, have a data browser. It's an easy way to access data, look at data on your forms without needing to do a full data export. But what I really wanted to highlight was over here in reports. And there's a standard report called review status. And if I drill down to the most granular level, which is the review status by form, I can see for every single form in the system different statuses, including was this form fully SDV'd? Who SDV'd it? Is it not applicable? Or, is it done? Is it not done? So for me, I like to say, well, which forms are blank? This means that SDV is expected rather than it being not applicable. and it's not yet done. So this is helpful for me if I wanted a high-level report of things that I actually need to do. So thank you for checking out the video. That's just a little bit about doing monitoring tasks in Viedoc. There's more that we can show you, and we'd be happy to do so given a personalized demo. So thanks again. Have a great day.